If you're a serious investor, you already know that Berkshire's annual letters are required reading. But today, we're going to do more than just read it. We're going to deconstruct it. We're getting inside the 2013 letter to really reverse engineer the operating system of one of the greatest capital allocators in history.
Okay, let's just start with this number, 693,518%. Just let that sink in for a second. No, that is not a typo. That is the overall gain in Berkshire Hathaway's per-share book value from 1964 to 2013, a number so absolutely massive it just makes you stop and ask one simple question: how? And this chart, well, it really puts that number into perspective. I mean, look, the S&P 500 did incredibly well, delivering a 9,841% gain. Amazing. But Berkshire compounded at nearly double the annual rate. That isn't luck, and it isn't a fluke. It's a disciplined, repeatable philosophy. And that's exactly what we're here to unpack.
So where does a track record like that even begin? Well, it all starts with a fundamental shift in perspective. It's about changing the game you're playing. You stop being a stock picker and you start being a business owner who just happens to buy pieces of companies through the stock market.
And this idea, this is the bedrock of everything. It comes straight from Buffett's mentor, the legendary Benjamin Graham. You know, every single major decision, every capital allocation choice that Berkshire makes, it all flows from this one powerful principle. A stock isn't a lottery ticket. It is a piece of a business. Period.
So you can really think of this as two completely different games being played on the same field. The investor, they're focused on the business itself. They're asking, what is this company going to earn over the next 5-10 years? The speculator, on the other hand, is just staring at the stock chart, asking, what's the price going to do tomorrow, next week? Buffett is crystal clear. His entire focus is on the playing field, the business, not the scoreboard of daily stock quotes.
And when you adopt that business owner mindset, it naturally leads you to this next core idea: a relentless, almost obsessive focus on quality. Buffett would much rather own a non-controlling but substantial piece of an excellent business, think Coca-Cola, think American Express, than own 100% of a mediocre one. Now for you, as a capital allocator, think about how liberating that is. Suddenly your universe of opportunities just got a whole lot bigger.
Okay, but to play this owner's game at the scale of Berkshire, you need fuel. You need a massive amount of long-term capital. And that brings us to the absolute heart of the Berkshire machine, its insurance operations, and the incredible power of what's called float.
So, for anyone who needs a quick refresher, float is basically the money that insurers collect up front in premiums, which they then get to hold on to, sometimes for years, before they have to pay out claims. It's like this giant revolving fund of capital that, yeah, it's technically a liability, but in practice, it acts as a huge investable asset.
And just look at the scale of this engine. It went from just $39 million back in 1970 to a jaw-dropping $77.2 billion by 2013. This isn't just funding, it's a tidal wave of capital that can be deployed into those Hope Diamond businesses we talked about, all generated by a collection of world-class insurance companies.
But here, right here, is the masterstroke. For most insurance companies, float comes at a cost. But Berkshire's operations are so disciplined, so good, that for 11 straight years leading up to this letter, they actually generated an underwriting profit. They were literally getting paid to hold and invest billions of dollars of other people's money. It is the ultimate financial advantage, a massive source of long-term capital with a negative cost.
So, we've got the theory, the big numbers, but how does all of this actually look in a real-world investment? Well, to make it all tangible, Buffett tells this simple story about a small investment he made, a story that basically contains his entire philosophy in a nutshell.
So picture this. It's the mid-'80s. A farm bubble had just burst, and Buffett buys a farm out in Nebraska. And here's the kicker. He knew absolutely nothing about how to operate a farm. And that's the whole point. The key isn't being an expert in the operation. It's about being able to analyze the economics of the asset.
And here is the exact practical playbook he used. First, he figured out a normal return based on what it produced, corn and soybeans. Simple. Second, he saw long-term upside in things like productivity gains and crop prices. Third, he made sure he had the financial staying power to never be a forced seller. And finally, and this one is maybe the most important of all, he completely, totally ignored the chatter. He didn't care what other people thought the farm was worth day to day. This is the exact same logic he uses to buy shares in multi-billion-dollar companies.
And that quote just nails it, right? The farm's productivity, how much corn and soy it grew, that was the playing field. The opinions of pundits or his neighbors, that was just the scoreboard. By focusing on the field, the results just took care of themselves. And by 2013, the farm's earnings had tripled, and the property was worth at least 5 times what he paid for it.
All right, so let's boil all of this down. What are the key principles you can pull from this letter and actually put into your own investment playbook?
Okay, first, keep it simple. You don't get extra points for difficulty. Know the boundaries of your circle of competence and just stay inside them. Second, focus only on what the asset is going to produce in the future. Third, you've got to tune out the macro noise, the market forecasts. They are a dangerous, dangerous distraction. And finally, you have to learn to befriend volatility. A market in panic is your opportunity to buy wonderful businesses at fair prices.
And maybe the most surprising and frankly humbling lesson in the whole letter comes from his own personal advice for his wife's trust. For a non-professional, he says the best path isn't to try and copy him. It's to simply buy a cross-section of American business through a low-cost index fund and just hold on. That's a powerful statement about how hard this game really is.
Which really brings us to the final question. And this one is for you. In your own process, surrounded by complex models, by 24/7 commentary, are you focusing on the playing field, or are your eyes glued to the scoreboard? Because as this letter shows, time and time again, the most sophisticated and enduring strategy might just be the simplest one.